Imagine a world where women have more time to explore their genius. Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for women leaders and founders ready to unlearn conventional rules and lead their businesses of significance. Held for counter status quo ideas and a whole dose of feminine perspective, this is our 10th series. My name's Lulu Mintz. I host retreats and create spaces for women leaders to explore their genius. And today, I'm going to create that same space right here for you on this podcast. Welcome to episode 141 of She Rebel Radio, discovering the benefits of simple living and minimalism with Shannon Murphy. Today, professional organiser and founder of Simple Living, Shannon Murphy joins me. She has over 7 years of experience of minimalism and has spent 2 of them helping clients to simplify their lives. She is, of course, a huge advocate for minimalism and decluttering, which enables us to improve our mental well-being and to create more space for joy, freedom, and happiness. In a world that encourages us to overconsume and always be in the wanting of more, Shannon was initially inspired after watching the Netflix documentary called Minimalism, after which she began to carefully curate her own life. Following a relationship breakdown, she managed to fit her entire life into one car and felt the freedom of doing so. This in turn inspired her to help others to get organised and live a life that reflects the truth of who they are. She's a big believer that we can find beauty in simplicity, and I couldn't agree more. Shannon, it's amazing to have you here. How are you doing?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this conversation because it's something that will transpire through our conversation that I have attempted to do and been successful in some spaces and not others. So I'm looking forward to diving into it with you. And, you know, your work as a professional organizer was inspired by the Emmy nominated Netflix documentary Minimalism. Some of our audience may have listened to that too. It's had over 80 million views worldwide. What was it about that documentary that really inspired you and, you know, perhaps has inspired other people?
Yeah, so for me, it completely came out of the blue. I wasn't searching for anything. I wasn't like, oh, I want to change my life. My partner at the time, late one evening, was just scrolling through Netflix, trying to find something for us to watch, and happened to stumble across this documentary, just said, how about this? And I said, yeah, great. And he put it on. And I sat in absolute silence and awe for the entire thing. And it was one of those moments where your life just changes. And I just couldn't go back the other way. So it shows the contrast between modern consumer culture and then minimalism. So it starts off showing Black Friday sales, which we don't have as much now because we've got a lot of online shopping. But, you know, those people, massive crowds fighting each other for huge flat screen TVs that they probably don't actually need. And then shows people living with intention, feeling really calm, having peaceful homes, and having clarity on what their goals are and what direction they want to go in. There was a lot of personal stories in it, people who have made that change, who've worked in huge corporate jobs, earning 6, 7 figure salaries, realizing that buying the massive home, all of the cars, all of the handbags, all the things that we are told makes us successful actually didn't make them happy. And by stripping that back, finding a job that really fulfilled them, living a lot more simply, downsizing so that they don't have that financial burden anymore, actually allowed them to live a life and to find what their happiness is.
There are some studies, although it didn't feature in the documentary, around money and that, you know, if we earn up to £50,000, etc., that creates a certain degree of happiness, but anything above that doesn't increase it in any way, shape, or form. And it was totally bonkers, as you say, to watch people fighting over discounted TVs and things like that at the beginning of the episode or the documentary.
Yeah, massively. I think if we can just what we need to do, and this is the issue, like you were saying, once we reach that we have a roof over our head, we have food on the table, that we can cover our normal financial bills, and that we have a life that is comfortable, then that is where we're at the sweet spot. And then yes, as it goes up and you get all of the excess and people are buying the yachts and all of those sorts of things, if we go to the extreme, they aren't where the happiness is. So if we can live on the sweet spot, then we're in such a good position to then go outside of ourselves, outside of what we need to give to others, to have experiences instead. So yeah, definitely.
And was that something that you felt you were on the trajectory of at that time? Chasing?
I was chasing just to get to that baseline. I was in a situation where, so I actually own two businesses. My other business I've had for 10 years, and it was massively, like, not making any money. I was going to say failing, but it was on its way up potentially, but really I didn't have much money. So I wasn't even at that baseline. And I dreamed of owning my own property. That was my lifelong goal, and had no idea how I possibly would get to that. So I think I was looking for, well, I wasn't looking for anything when I watched it, but it was really about, these people aren't striving for the craziness, they're striving for the simplicity and the happiness within themselves and their family and their experiences outside of the physical items. And that really appealed to me.
Yeah, it sounds like seeing that there's another way. Maybe the answers aren't all in that space. And I don't know if you know my background. I was as a lawyer. I was a lawyer. I was at that baseline. That there were more steps I could take, but I was like, oh, I'm not sure that's going to fulfill me. And I need to take an alternative route. And what is that going to look like? And some of the unsafety that can come with that. But as they say, failure is an opportunity to begin again more intelligently. So when we've had failing businesses, we can start again of something that is more in alignment. It's certainly been my experience. So what happened next for you and following the documentary, and how did you then begin to carefully curate your own life?
So literally after the documentary ended, I made a massive pile in my living room of stuff I wanted to declutter. And that is not what I recommend to my clients, but I was just really inspired and was like, right, let's get rid of all this stuff and start afresh. But after I'd done that initial purge, I began to educate myself. And I say this to every single person who's interested in changing their mindset around consumerism: start with education. So, listening to podcasts, watching documentaries, reading books, as much as you possibly can from a huge variety of different sources. And that's what I did to learn what actually worked for me, the people that inspired me, their stories, and the techniques to actually declutter, because a lot of people do it differently.
Hmm.
So it's about working out what works for you. And I think because it's obviously something I'm so passionate about and I found so interesting, I was able to take all of the knowledge I learned over those 7 years and curate it, for my clients, because now I know what can and can't work. And when someone's struggling, I can swap it for something else. My energy was focused away from browsing online, standing in line to do returns, and instead I was building my business, refining my finances, and taking those steps towards making my goal, which was to own my own property, really happen. So by removing that excess, you can focus on what's really important. And I got really honest with myself, and this is something people need to learn to do as well, is, what am I not using? Like, how many t-shirts do I actually need? Do
Mm.
I need this subscription, or can I go without it? And am I buying this just because I'm feeling sad or bored? What's really going on? What's the root cause underneath this?
Yeah, it's so important. Again, when I was practicing legal, I would work, 12 days in a row. Sometimes I'd work an entire weekend at the police station, and I would buy stuff, and then I'd consciously be aware. I'd be like, oh, well, I deserve it because I've worked 12 days in a row, and thought that was okay behavior until burnout, hit me some 10 years ago and stuff. So, yeah, really looking at that root cause. And I think what's really important that you said there, which is all part of empowering ourselves, is education, is educating yourself on what may work for you and what won't. Now, what is the correlation between overconsumption and overwhelm? How is the increase in purchasing contributing to our decline in mental health? And when you emailed me about being on She Rebel Radio, you shared some stats with me that would be really great to hear.
Yeah, so if I just start by saying we are actually buying 60% more than we were 15 years ago. And I think part of it could be what you were saying about the fact that we feel like we're treating ourselves by buying something. You know, you were saying you work so hard, and so I'm going to go out and purchase something as a reward for myself, rather than I've worked so hard, I'm going to give myself a break and I'm going to take myself out for a nice day. We kind of have swapped that for a quick click and a really momentary endorphin hit. Then Florida State University research revealed that there's a link between hoarding and obesity, noting that if you have extremely cluttered homes, you're 77% more likely to be overweight. And if we think about that and break it down, when we're not looking after ourselves and we're not looking after our home, maybe our kitchens are really cluttered, so we're not really able to use the space properly. It's easier to get a takeaway, it's easier to be eating out or just snacking, not looking after ourselves properly. So there's a direct correlation there between how we treat our home, treat ourselves, and our own mental and physical health.
Yeah.
There's obviously the decision fatigue that comes in, like, what am I going to wear today? Which one of these did I say was actually working? Like, is it this hairdryer that still works, or is it this hairdryer? Like, it's small things, but that everyone knows about
Mm.
decision fatigue.
What are the benefits of simple living and minimalism? You know, why does having less mean we can be happier, more authentic, genuine, and that really important word, intentional in our lives? When you shared, you know, your goal didn't change. You still wanted to own your own home, but you got rid of the excess.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. So it's going to allow people to get clarity on who they want to be, where they want to go, and what they want to do. Because when you think about the fact that you are spending so much time, whether that's shopping online, looking online, purchasing, returning things, tidying up, attempting to declutter, and then not being able to, having arguments with your friends and family, all of those things are taking up your time and energy. So when you can simplify it down, you can reduce the excess, you have time, you have an abundance of time, and you can sit and work out exactly what it is you want to do and where you want to be.
Mm.
Like I said, for me, it was that journey of watching that documentary. I then split from my partner that I watched that documentary with, not immediately.
It
It
wasn't the
wasn't like
excess.
I'm decluttering you, goodbye. No, so I then ended up not having anywhere to live because I wasn't in a good financial situation, my business not earning, not making very much, so I had to move to my dad's. And like you said in your intro, I was able to fit everything that I owned into the back of my car.
Mm.
And although that sounds quite extreme for most people, it gave me that opportunity that I could then just straight away unpack and start my new life. I didn't have to get removal vans, I didn't have to pay for storage. I could just move, get myself focused, and begin my journey. So for me, that was really amazing and important.
Mm.
I
It's
think
really
you can make, yeah, sorry, go
I
on.
was going to say it's a really empowering thing to do, and whilst I haven't quite done that, because I had a property
Yeah.
where I'd cleared a load of stuff out of my property. This was in lockdown, when we came out of the first lockdown. I got rid of a load of stuff, rented my house out, and moved to Cornwall with just a carload, including two geriatric cats, I call them, but they're still with me, and they're older now. And it was something really empowering. But what I noticed was when I drove back, I had to do it in about 3 carloads. So I'd gained excess whilst I was there, which I found really interesting. I was like, how has that happened? And a lot of it actually was my parents sending me stuff as well. And I'd moved a few things because I was going to stay down there longer. But yeah, it's an empowering thing to do, to just think you can put everything that you need or own in a car and just move on to plan B without the cost of storage, removal vans. It's so stressful.
Yeah, and I think most people would be surprised how little they actually need and can live with. And it's not about frugality. I have things that make me happy, like physical items. I have memories, items that I really cherish. It's not about having one spoon, one knife, one plate and restricting yourself. It's about, what do you really actually use? What do you actually really love? And then taking away that excess. So I work with so many people who are feeling mentally exhausted by their homes and they can't relax. Their children don't use their playrooms because they're overwhelmed. I even work with people who don't have friends and family over because they're embarrassed by their home. And after working together, they can reclaim their space, focus on those experiences over possessions, have more time, more energy, and just that room to breathe. We all kind of know that feeling of when we take a bag of stuff to the charity shop.
Mm.
Just feels like a little bit of lightness has come on us and a weight's been lifted.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and it's a critical. It's something that I've given clients to do when they've started working with me or before working with me. If there's a delay to that start of clearing space out, because nature abhors a vacuum, and when we're creating a new chapter, we need to not sit on all the stuff that we've had. So it
mm.
definitely does work in terms of that being intentional as well about what do I want, what don't I want at a really root level. Where's a good place to start?
So what I said before about education is the place I tell every single person to start with, because if you are someone who, say, really is addicted to buying fast fashion, that's your thing that you really can't stop doing, watch documentaries about the impact fast fashion has on the environment and other people. So The Cost of Fashion, I think, is a really great documentary to have a look at. Um, Anything about educating yourself on the impact consumption has on our environment or on the people that are making those things is really great, just to help you to start to curb your purchasing decisions.
Mm.
And then it's looking at the mindset stuff. So what are other people doing? What is it about that what they're doing that appeals to me? And then how can I bring that into my life? I really think it's important that we turn off the tap before dealing with the flood. So don't say to yourself, all right, I'm going to just start decluttering, but you are then bringing in 10 more items and only 5 are going out. It's completely pointless. So you need to put distance between you and the final purchase. So whether that's unfollowing people on social media that are doing those like massive hauls, or suggesting that you should buy stuff, unsubscribing from email lists for sales for big retailers, those sorts of things. Having a little set of questions to ask yourself before you make a purchase, like, have I got something similar at home that I could use instead of this? Am I just buying this because I'm, like I said, bored or feeling overwhelmed? Am I actually able to use this properly? Is it something that's like for the kitchen that I'm going to have to clean loads and I'm going to end up not using it, like a spiralizer? Remember when everyone went out and bought spiralizers because that was a new thing? Most
Yeah.
people have probably still got them sat in their kitchen. They've used them once, they never use them again. So set some distance. I would get really clear on why you want to declutter. Like, why do you want to simplify? What are you actually trying to achieve? I think a lot of us just like, oh yeah, it's a bit messy, I probably should declutter. But then what you'll do is like get your whole wardrobe out, shove it on your bed. It's like 10 p.m. You'll sit on Instagram scrolling through stuff, and then it will get to 11 p.m. and you'll think, oh, actually, I probably need to go to bed now, and then just shove it all back in, close the wardrobe doors and just forget about it. Like, what are you actually trying to do this for? Is it because you're in debt and you want to get out of debt? How does that debt, but not just that, how does that debt make you feel? Is it because you're feeling overwhelmed by your possessions? Is that your reason why? How is that actually impacting your day-to-day life? You need to really hone in on, why am I doing this? Because if you don't know, then you're not going to have any motivation to stick it out. And so I'd write out your why and put it up somewhere you can see it. So when you're in the midst of having all this stuff around you, being like, I just want to give up and just put it all away. No, I'm doing this because I need to get clarity on X, Y, and Z, and I need to make room for whatever it is.
Yeah.
So make sure you understand why you're doing it, not just because you feel like you have to do it.
Yeah, and that's really focusing on the vision of what you want to create rather than the problem of the fact that there's too much stuff, which will keep you motivated for a short amount of time, but not, the full amount of time. So that's a really good takeaway. Thank you. What are the most cluttered places and trouble spots in people's homes? Wardrobe might be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, wardrobe might be one, but for the work I've done, it's completely different for everyone. So the reason why their space is cluttered and the space that is cluttered is always very different. But what came to mind was kind of guest bedrooms is a big one, because it's a space that isn't used very often and it becomes a bit of a dumping ground. We're kind of like, oh yeah, no, this is going to be the guest room, but then actually it comes an office. It becomes where we store the stuff we're going to sell on Vinted, and then like some of the kids stuff or stuff we need to take to charity. All of it just seems to get dumped into the room that no one's really using. It loses its importance. So yeah, I kind of think that the guest bedroom is a place, but you're right, wardrobes as well, but literally any space in the home. Another thing is kind of garages and lofts, because, oh, I can't deal with it right now, just shove it in the garage or the loft, we'll come back to it. And that happens and happens, and then no one deals with it until they have to move home. And if you don't move home, then you've got like 40 years worth of stuff in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, attics, cupboards under the stairs. And I know when I sold my property in 2022, up in the attic was stuff that belonged to my sister and brother-in-law of the kids, because they did like one of those home makeover shows. So all the kids' toys were up there that had been up there for 7 years or something, and stuff of mine that when I moved in and I was a lawyer, and I was like, whose is this stuff? Like handbags and books that were so not me, because I'd gone through X amount of personal growth cycles, but being in my property that I'm in now, I've done the same thing, and I have put stuff in the attic, mostly books, because I haven't really got room for them, and I absolutely love books, and I definitely hoard books, and I got rid of a load of books as well. But I'm aware of it. The minute it's gone into one of those hidden places, we're like, do we really need it? Because we're keeping it out the way because we don't need it right now. So it's a great place for us all to reflect upon, definitely. What are your tips for decluttering our businesses or our professional lives? Because I feel like as well, like computers are a whole different thing of decluttering and almost needing help from others to help you do that too.
Yeah, massively. I on my community, I've got a little community of people. We meet up once a month virtually to do some decluttering, give people that accountability and support. I held a virtual digital declutter session where we just sit and deleted files and photos off of our phones and our laptops, because it's something, especially as a business owner, you're like, I really need to do it, but it just goes to the bottom of the list as you've got other priorities. So digital clutter is a whole nother thing. But I think starting with your workspace is really important. You want to have a workspace that really sets you up for success. So instead of like opening your desk drawer and it's full of like snacks, nuts, old post-it notes, old to-do lists and pens, pencils, and it's just chaotic, it's not supporting you to make you feel confident in your ability and that calm and clarity that you need to be able to do your job. So if you can simplify that space so that you're focusing instead of staring at a massive pile of stuff that you're like, I really need to sort that out, it's really going to help your productivity. I think that one like little notice that I have up on my wall is do less and do it well. We are always told that we should be on every single platform promoting our businesses. We should be out networking every single day while posting on Instagram, Netflix, LinkedIn, and every single other way that you can possibly shout about yourself, while also hosting meetings and doing workshops and whatever. It's just so much,
Yeah,
and we
too
can't
much.
do yeah, we can't do it all and do it really well. So I think it's about being a little bit minimalist with that, just having maybe an Instagram account or just having your community, whatever it is, and really putting your all into that, making it really successful, making it really strong on what it's about, who you are, and projecting that out to the people that you want to bring into your world,
Yeah, and
rather than doing.
realizing, I think it comes across well in the documentary that we're, going against the grain by doing this stuff, because consumerism and the powers that be are constantly bombarding us with do this, do more, have more, be more in inverted commas. Yeah,
Yeah, massively. It's just everyone's constantly telling you, oh well, you should, out of the kindness of the heart, oh well, have you thought about doing this and doing this, and so you've just got that noise, and then yeah, we're not really doing any of it very well. So identifying what it is that you want to do and then really honing in on that and doing it well, and then working out what your key objectives are. So every day we've all got a massive to-do list, but potentially, if you're employed, you have other people and they're saying, oh, can you take on this, can you do this? It's about saying, oh yeah, I'm happy to take that on, but what are the other things that you've given me to do that are no longer a priority, so I can remove them and put this in its place. So kind of setting that expectation with other people around you that you only have so much bandwidth and so much time. So what is their priority, or what is your priority to achieve that day?
yeah, and really important for women in particular who, do 75% of the unpaid work in the home and in the workplace. So I quite often say no to the NPTs, the non-profitable, non-pleasurable and non-promotable tasks, and prioritize the ones that are, is really important. And I had to ask this question as well, on behalf of our listeners. How does one start to become a minimalist when you've got children?
Yeah, so a lot of people will say this to me, but I've got kids, so I can't do minimalism. It's not available to me. But the thing is, it's suitable for everyone. It might not look the same as someone who's single, living with their dog like me, but it will look different for every family. So babies and young children don't have the money to go to shops and buy all that stuff. It's adults that are bringing that stuff in. Some people are buying toys for their kids because they work long hours and they believe their children are bored, but actually they have too much stuff and their playrooms are overwhelming, that they just can't even see what they have to be able to play with. I think a lot of people have friends and family that are buying stuff and gifts for their children. So setting those boundaries, talking to them about the changes that you're making. So if you started to declutter, you found some benefits, but then, the grandparents are buying more stuff, having those conversations in a positive light with them, saying, do you know what we did this weekend? We've been doing this. This is the reason why. These are the benefits we found from it. And we'd really love for you to help and support us with this by buying us experiences instead of physical items in the future. Don't go in with those, don't buy us any more things, and then leaving it at that, because people are a bit like, okay, but I don't know what to do. And we've been kind of conditioned to believe that by gift giving we are showing our love, so they then feel a bit stuck and then end up just resorting back to buying a physical item. So saying, we'd really love a membership to the zoo, or we'd really love if we could all go out on a day out together instead, so that
Yeah.
they have something that they can do as a difference.
Yeah, I think it's important, isn't it, that for some people it's their love language is physical gifts. I certainly know my sister's tried it with my grandparents. Stop buying so much stuff, with my parents, and yeah, my father likes to leave little things for the kids in their beds and all sorts of stuff, which is great, but not when it's become overwhelming. Bless him. But and what happens when we declutter and clear out only to start building stuff up again? As I said, I've had that experience. What tips would you have there, or what beliefs might we need to clear out to create a more concrete change for ourselves?
Can I start by asking what you think made you kind of declutter and then end up going back into the situation where you were feeling like you were bringing more in again? Was there something that was going on, or?
Well, it's selling a property. So selling a property, wanting to sell a property, get rid of it all, or the majority of it, and anything that didn't bring me joy. I'm being quite successful with that, and then resettling.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what once in the settling mode again, then being like, oh, another succulent for the roof terrace, another, all that kind of stuff. Clothes, I've definitely gone down to a minimal amount, but then, and I have a rule: if I buy something, something has to go. And I only have a rail now. I don't have a wardrobe where I can hide stuff so much. But yeah, so it's more resettling, I think.
Yeah, and I think that happens for a lot of people, is that's the motivation, wasn't it? It was to buy to move home and to not bring in all of this excess into your new space. So that was a massive motivation for that time. But then because that had gone, it's like, okay, well, now it's okay to be buying more than I need again. And so I think for you, it's like finding your new why. Is
Yeah.
it because you're feeling a little overwhelmed and you want to regain your clarity, or what is your why now, because your why has gone in terms of the home? So yeah, no line is linear. All of our goals were going to have setbacks. I've purchased items and then not used them and then regretted the decision. And sometimes, if we're trying to eat better and then we have a load of cake and then realize we feel really unwell and it wasn't actually the best decision, it's never a straight line all the way up to whatever success it looks like to us. So don't ever feel like, oh, right, well, I've recluttered the space, that's it, I've got to spend the rest of my life living like this now.
Yeah, it's that we
um,
we fall off the wagon and we stay on it. And yeah, it's that noticing, isn't it? I was only thinking about it, and obviously having you on, I was like, oh yeah, I've definitely gathered more stuff in this place, and it was quite nice when there wasn't a lot here, and now there is stuff here. So it's being mindful of that, isn't it? 100%, and finding your new why. As you said, we've all got to have an individual why as motivation.
Yeah, and I think because is it because you feel so much better with space, or question those things as to whether you're bringing them in and what potentially is making that clutter come to you? So yeah, like I said, my tip is to go back to education, the motivational inspiration, because we're sold to all day, every day, on every single platform that we're using. And so it's seeking out those places where people are talking about the opposite is really important, because otherwise we're just being sold to. So a couple of people that I can recommend if anyone's interested and wants to go off and learn a bit more. There's a TV show on BBC called Sort Your Life Out. It's got Stacey Solomon as the host, and that's really great. And it's also can involve your kids. It's a kind of family friendly TV show where they take someone's home and put it all in a warehouse and display it all like color coordinated and in categories, so that they can go through their entire home in the space of 2 days and decide what to keep and let go of. There's the YouTuber Matt Diavella, who actually created the film Minimalism. He's got a great YouTube. He talks a lot about work spaces. He's just had a baby, so he talks about how he's bringing that into his minimalism journey. The Millennial Minimalists have a great podcast. Joshua Becker is a writer. And then the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown is also really good. So there's a couple of places you can kind of start to learn, and I'm sure they'll recommend other people as well. But it is about looking outside of that noise of buy. This is going to make you happy, and finding those people who are talking about the alternative.
Yeah, because we become the average of the 5 people that we hang out with the most. So hang out with more minimalists is the message. Now, what is next for you, and where can we find you?
So I am going to continue to work with my wonderful clients in person and online. So I offer physical help with decluttering spaces, but also mindset sessions, as I keep talking about in this podcast. It's so important around our consumer habits to make long-lasting change. I mentioned before, I've got an online community where we meet once a month, and it's really about having that support, that motivation, and that company in decluttering. Because I was just remembering how I would watch YouTube videos of people decluttering their bedrooms when I first started simplifying, because I didn't have anyone around me that was doing something similar. So I had to just watch random people in America or something like decluttering. So I wanted to bring a sense of community and support. And like you say, those 5 people around you, I want those 5 people who are on the community to be those people who can be able to cheer you on. So yeah. And finally, I'm offering talks and workshops to businesses and companies to talk about everything I've discussed today, the well-being benefits of simplifying, and something I'm very passionate about, which is the sustainability element of it and the impact minimalism can have on the greater world. So if you have a company and you want something a little bit different in your wellness package, then yeah, get in touch.
Amazing. Thanks so much for being with us on She Rebel Radio, Shannon.
Thank you for listening to She Rebel Radio. If this episode has inspired you, please pass it on and share with at least one other incredible woman. Don't forget to also hit subscribe and leave us a review. You can find out more about me and my work at lulumins.com or on most social media platforms.